Hi, greetings everyone. As promised, here are my thoughts on why New Year's resolutions don't work and how you can better approach creating a life that you love. So, the start of a new year is a portal into a new existence, full of possibility for change. And we feel this instinctively and thus have many cultural rituals to celebrate the passing of the old and the stepping into the new. However, our feelings of optimism and possibility never seem to last, you may notice. So maybe you can identify with this. So you approach the new year full of determination. This is going to be the year. For many folks in the mainstream, the year that you drop the weight and get in shape and have the body of your dreams, or maybe the year that you finally get your finances in order and get out of debt and create the abundance that you desire. And, maybe you start off strong. New resolutions about self-care, for instance, kind of like we talked about yesterday. But usually by the end of January, for some folks even earlier than that, then folks have given up and slowly slide back into the same disempowering mindsets and unhealthy habits, often even more jaded about the possibility for change. And so, why is this? And what happens to undermine our success? So I'm going to talk about two areas in particular. And so first is, what is our imagined destination? And the second is, what is our fuel or motivation for the journey? So New Year's, is a big time for making resolutions. And the energy of resolutions is characteristically American, in my opinion. It's really rooted in limited American cultural beliefs about how change happens. And so the energy of resolutions is really about identifying a particular material world outcome that you believe is key to your happiness, and then setting a linear goal, which is the path that you believe is necessary to achieve your external outcome, and then applying the energy of self-discipline to get there. And so what's wrong with this model? Well, first of all, then it reinforces the American belief that happiness is found in external circumstances. So I'll be happy when I lose the weight and have the body I desire. I'll be happy when I get the job and have the money I desire. I'll be happy when I get the relationship and have the love I desire. And so similar to our mainstream frameworks about leadership and social justice, this way of thinking locates our happiness in the future, is rooted in control of things outside of ourselves, and sets us on a path of endless striving to try to achieve it. And the juice for that exhausting journey is self-discipline. So essentially, trying to force ourselves to do things that we don't actually want to do. And so when we inevitably fail, because how could we not, then we tend to blame ourselves, and our energy to create our best life sinks even lower. So actually, the whole process of making resolutions, in my way of seeing it, is really rooted in shame. The energy of New Year's resolutions is basically, I'll do better. So the implied message is that you're not doing good enough to begin with. So it really starts with identifying an area of life that you are unhappy with. And so you're likely being motivated by what you don't want, rather than what you do want. And the resolution is that I will do better. And so it is rooted in self-judgment, the motivation generally being fear and shame driven. And so you rely upon your inner taskmaster to berate you into action. And it is generally joyless. And one of the reasons that it simply doesn't work is that it creates a resistance and resentment. And so the part of us that doesn't want to generally tends to win out, creating another round of self-judgment and shame until we get so tired of feeling that way that then we give up and release ourselves from the expectation and also the hope for something better, and tend to walk away with underlying feelings of failure and despair. Another year that I couldn't make my dreams happen, feeling our sense of worthlessness that is really at the root of our unloving choices in life. So what do we do instead? I would say first to shift. And so if we start from deep value and acceptance of ourselves, then the desire to take care of ourselves and live our best life just naturally arises. So we want to eat better. We want to drink more water, find gentle and enjoyable forms of movement to support our body's strength and flexibility. We want to cultivate and share our gifts, have authentic connections. We want to have better boundaries, to get more rest, to surround ourselves with positive people and activities that support and value us. And we want our lives out of crisis so we can be at our best and make our highest and most positive contribution to the world around us. And all of this flows from the energy of tenderness and kindness, not from shame and blame. And so maybe just close your eyes for a moment and just really feel that energy and drink it in. That you want your very best life because of how much you deeply love yourself. It's a very different feeling. So secondly, our culture teaches us that our happiness is tied to particular outcomes. And so we must create the outcome first, and then we experience the feelings of happiness. However, from a spiritual perspective, then this is really backwards. So from a spiritual perspective, then first you give yourself the inner experience of what you want. And then you naturally draw to yourself the external circumstances that match that inner experience. And so, for instance, if you feel continually victimized by life, then you tend to continually draw to yourself experiences that reinforce that feeling of victimization. So we can be proactive and create what we want instead. And so say, for instance, you would like to create radiant health or abundance. Since we are all powerful creators, then you could give yourself the inner experience of radiant health or abundance right now and focus your attention on it rather than focusing your attention on whatever scarcity or dis-ease that you might be feeling. And so let's go ahead and try this out right now as well. So just close your eyes for a moment and just focus on what radiant health feels like. Since I know we have some folks in our group who have shared about that they're dealing with health challenges. So just allow yourself to experience radiant health and just drink that in. And now you can switch and focus on what abundance feels like. So maybe abundant finances or abundant love or abundant opportunities. And just feel that inner expansiveness that abundance inspires. And just really let yourself take it in and celebrate. Woohoo. And so often in the American way of thinking, then we get bogged down in the steps that we believe are necessary to create our goals. So if we want radiant health, for instance, then we tend to think, oh, I have to eat better. Oh, I better go to the gym. And our vibration tends to sink as we imagine the drudgery that might be involved in that. However, when we stay focused on the inner experience that we want, radiant health, then we may find that we don't have to do as many steps as we might think. So you might find yourself just drawn to the right health practice or practitioner because that's exactly what you need. And because it's the right fit, then you feel more motivated to do whatever you need to do to be healthy. Or you might find that your attention is drawn away from health altogether and that you just heal spontaneously while pursuing a new and gratifying career path. And you don't need to wait, to win the lottery to have a abundant feeling life. So build into your life now, even in small ways. Time for activities and people that you enjoy. That's an aspect of self-care we talked about yesterday. And you don't need to live beyond your means in order to give yourself, an expensive chocolate or a perfect flower or some other item that would allow your life to feel prosperous and luxurious right now, regardless of what your financial situation is like. And this is the key aspect of being the creators of our own lives, of giving ourselves the inner experience of what we would like now, rather than telling ourselves, "I'll be happy when." And finally, we need to address our unconscious motivations that keep us stuck in familiar struggles. And so, for instance, if you spend a lot of energy stressing about money, then what are some of the ways that this might actually be a smokescreen covering over a bigger issue in your life? So ask yourself, if I did not feel stuck around money, then what else would come to the surface? What am I really afraid of? And maybe what is it that I want actually more than money? And, so being in a struggle around money may just be a familiar and hence safe pattern that keeps your attention away from something that actually might feel deeper and scarier to delve into. And so if there's something that we have been struggling with unsuccessfully for years, then there are likely unconscious payoffs to staying stuck that we are not recognizing. And so becoming aware of them helps us to deal with them more consciously, and then ultimately to be able to let them go when we feel ready. And so, for instance, as being stuck, preserving a familiar identity. Being a victim could be a familiar identity. Are you receiving attention from it, whether that's positive or negative, that you wouldn't otherwise get? Is being stuck allowing you to put off doing something that is frightening to you, or protecting you from failing by preventing you from starting something? I could say for myself that, I felt so frustrated for many years as a gender creative person, that I felt unable to be heard, that I had important things to say, but was just seemingly unintelligible to most people, or they weren't able to recognize the value of my perspective. And it was easy to feel victimized and to blame others for my frustration. However, I eventually had to realize that many parts of me actually didn't want to be seen and heard, because I didn't feel like it was safe to be seen and heard. And so, therefore, I was actually working at cross purposes with myself. So, parts of me wanting to be seen and heard, and other parts of me definitely not wanting to be seen and heard, which is a little bit like, having your foot on the gas and on the brake simultaneously, resulting in me not going anywhere. But I wasn't able to address and move on from the real problem until I was able to see it. And so, what are the payoffs for you of staying stuck and not having the life of your dreams? What are the ways that you might actually be afraid of being happy or successful? Because I can say for myself that in my own spiritual development, facing my wounds and my traumas took one level of courage, but embracing my gifts and my power was actually much, much scarier. And so doing this kind of work generally does take support, because it's hard to see what is in our blind spots, both our fears as well as our gifts that we can't see. So in my spiritual community in Minneapolis, then I repeatedly would get feedback from people that they saw me speaking to large crowds of people. And at the time, that was just really outside of my belief system. And I just never imagined that kind of future for myself. And so it was really useful to have people continually giving me that feedback, and people that I really loved and trusted, and people that were able to see other qualities in me that I always appreciated about me, but that other people didn't necessarily appreciate, because it was really the opposite of many of the values of American culture. And so over time, it really helped me to expand my own sense of possibility and my own sense of what my life could be, just by having that feedback from other people. And so, for instance, if you have a hand in front of your face, it can be difficult to see what exactly it is because it's so close. But someone across the room can easily see, oh, you have a hand in front of your face. And so having this kind of help, can really save you years of struggle and suffering. And so if the New Year's resolution approach has failed you year after year after year, then you might be ready to try a different approach. And so if this sounds appealing or like a welcomed relief, then hit me up over a private messenger and let's figure out what would be the best strategy for you. Because I believe this journey really does take support. And so in our group, Thank you for the hearts, Angela and Chelsea and Alistair. Nice to have you here. Um, for our group, then I'm going to encourage you to try this out, to do a little experiment and to try taking a different approach to the new year. So rather than choosing a New Year's resolution for 2019, then I'm going to invite you instead to choose a spiritual power for the year. And so a spiritual power is not a specific outcome or a destination. Instead, it is a quality. So, like courage or trust or magnetism or steadfastness, one that has the ability to create many positive outcomes. And so, for example, the disappearance of a physical symptom would be an outcome, while the capacity to heal would be a spiritual power. And so, creating a circumstance or an event that evokes joyfulness is another example of an outcome. But experiencing joy regardless of outer circumstances would be a spiritual power. And so I'll create a post after I get off here now, inviting people to share the spiritual power that they are claiming for the year. And then I'll regularly have check-ins where people can share about how they are embodying that power and as holders of that power and giving it away to others. So Angela just shared what comes to me as forgiveness, which is a great one. It's at the root of so many wonderful positive outcomes, both in our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with others. And so to embody forgiveness is really huge in a world that is really operating according to the paradigm of shame and blame. And the shame and blame paradigm just causes so incredibly much suffering and so much defensiveness because, then in order to not take the blame on ourselves, we continually have to be dissociating from our responsibility for the problems that we're creating as well as the solutions that we could create together. And always looking for somebody else to blame. And so that's such a wonderful one to embody in the world as a leader and as a teacher. To be able to talk about restorative justice rather than retribution, both on the collective level as well as on the individual level. To be able to forgive ourselves for all the ways that we create obstacles for our own happiness and success due to our fears and due to our past disappointments. And then to be a holder of that power in the world, to be able to pass it on to others as a role model and really to give other people the gift of your forgiveness is really, really huge because forgiveness really does just chain us so much to suffering, our own suffering, collective suffering, and suffering of other people. And so unlocking that, the gift of forgiveness really is a key to unlock that. So thanks for sharing that. It's a great one. If anybody else wants to share anything that's coming to them, this would be a great time to do that as well. I'm feeling pretty drawn to magnetism because I am interested in drawing to myself levels of love and leadership and abundance that I have previously been blocking for myself. And, as somebody who is a healing people pleaser, so much of my life has been spent, chasing things, being off my center and moving towards other people or other things to try to create them for myself. And so what I've been practicing is really, cultivating that steadfast energy of staying in place and drawing the things that I want to me without having to chase them down. So I feel like magnetism would be a great quality in that. Okay, so the ending of our calendar year and the beginning of a new one is a very significant and potent marker in our individual and collective journeys. And so I hope that you make the most of that today and have lots of fun in the process. So for me, the activity of choice for New Year's Eve is always dancing, because I love dancing. And that's just one of the ways that I feel most connected to myself and to life and to my body and to music. So I'm hoping to do that tonight. We have some snow here, so we'll see how easy that will be. But that's what I'm looking forward to. And welcome Hillary also, who just joined us. So have fun tonight, and I will see you on the other side. Thanks.